Part 36. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 353. As soon as Wu Meiniang said this, the servant woman waiting in the yard was not surprised. If Prime Minister Teng's appearance is 30% similar to Teng Chong's, then he is 50% similar to Li Yao. Originally, the servants thought that Prime Minister Teng was Teng Chong's son. But since Teng Chong was captured, Li Yao lived in this courtyard. Moreover, Li Yao would hang out with Wu Meiniang no matter it was day or night, and she did not avoid the servants waiting in the yard. So when they saw that Prime Minister Teng looked more like Li Yao, they guessed that Prime Minister Teng was Li Yao's son. It was after seeing Li Yao's appearance and his affair with Wu Meiniang that Wei Feng guessed that Prime Minister Teng was his son, so he threatened him as a hostage. But when Prime Minister Teng heard what his mother said, he didn't want to believe it at all. "Mom, my father is Teng Chong, a high official, not this bad guy. I don't want him to be my father. If he bullies you, I won't like him." Children who are 5 or 6 years old do not understand human affairs at all and do not understand what Li Yao was doing by stripping off her mother and pressing her on the bed. He just happened upon the scene accidentally, heard her mother's cry, and was taken away by the nanny. In his opinion, Li Yao was bullying his mother. "Xiang Uncle Li is your father." "No, I don't want him to be my father. My father is a high official, and I will also be a high official in the future." Prime Minister Teng is very stubborn. Wu Meiniang had no intention of explaining to him at the moment. She saw Wei Feng frowning with a sullen face, as if she had no patience anymore. "I can only ask Li Yao, brother Li, we only have one child, you can't just watch him die, right? Please tell them where the rice came from, okay?" Wu Meiniang cried until the pear blossoms were wet with rain, and she begged softly, which made Li Yao feel soft. It can be seen that Prime Minister Teng is still yelling at him, calling him a bad person, and his heart has hardened again. Although Prime Minister Teng's appearance was more similar to him, he was not 100% sure that he was his son. Even though Wu Meiniang followed him first, she also said that Teng Xiang was his child. But not long after he lost Wu Meiniang's virginity, he let her follow Prime Minister Teng. He couldn't ruin the second prince's important affairs for the sake of an unknown child. It's just a child. He is still young. In the future, he will wait for the two princes to become a big deal. As for children, they are born casually. Li Yao glanced at Prime Minister Teng and looked away indifferently. "I don't know where those tribute rice came from. This matter has nothing to do with me." As long as he refuses to admit it, Teng Chong will have no choice but to die when Jin Yiwei reports Gong Mai's matter to the emperor. Teng Chong was the prince's man. He helped the second prince chop off the prince's right-hand man. Even if his affair with Wu Meiniang was exposed, the second prince would have someone protect him. Seeing his denial about Gong Mi, Wu Meiniang's face turned pale. "Brother Li, are you going to give up on us too? Are you going to die without saving us?" Ling Chu was not surprised at all by Li Yao's reaction. Scumbags are not uncommon no matter what era. Ning Chui waved his hand and asked Yin Sha to take Li Yao down for interrogation. After Ling Chu made some calculations, he led people to the right wing and found a secret door. Soon, Ning Chui and others followed her into the basement through the secret door. The side room is not big, but the basement is not small. Once inside, everyone was shocked. This situation surprised both Ning Chui and the Jinyi guards. They guessed that there was silver hidden in the basement, but they didn't expect that the silver was not hidden very secretly. The entire basement was densely packed with large and small silver bricks and silver ingots, piled haphazardly on the ground like worthless stones. There is another wall with boxes stacked on top of each other, almost to the top. These boxes were not locked, so Ning Chui casually opened a lid. A dazzling golden light shot out from inside, making the basement 3/3 brighter. These boxes contain gold bricks, gold bars, irregular gold nuggets, and gold lumps. Ning Chui asked people to count all the gold and silver, register them in the book, and then carry them out of the basement. Wu Meiniang felt sorry for Qin Zi, but also felt anxious and uneasy, wondering what Jin Yiwei would do with her and her son. He also became resentful towards Li Yao and took advantage of her. In the end, he abandoned her mother and son for his own sake. Had I known that all the hard work would be in vain in the end, she might as well have married a random businessman and not have ended up like this. After finding the silver, Ling Chu took Ning Chui and the others to the study. This house is not big, with only 3 entrances, and the study is not as big as the study in Zhou Shilang's house. The furnishings inside are simple, including a large desk. Although the 4 treasures of the study are placed on it, it still looks brand new and has not been used. There is also a set of small tables and chairs on the right side. On the table is a large, half-written piece of calligraphy spread out with immature handwriting. Obviously this is the big calligraphy that Prime Minister Teng practiced on weekdays. Against the north wall, there is a bookshelf filled with books, but there are almost no signs of being turned. When Teng Chong comes here on weekdays, he always sneaks over to find Wu Meiniang to sleep with. He does not read or work in this study. Although Wu Meiniang can read a little, she is not a person who likes to read, and she rarely comes here. This study room is basically where Teng Xianghui comes to practice his calligraphy. Ling Chu glanced at the bookshelf a few times and wanted to move the books on the 3rd row above, but she couldn't reach them. I am about to call a Jin Yiwei to help. But a big hand with distinct joints stretched out. Ling Chu turned around and saw Ning Chui standing behind her. This man with martial arts skills could walk without making a sound. She didn't even know when he came over. Ling Chu cursed in his heart. Seeing that Ning Chui had already taken down several books, he naturally reached out to take them, then turned around and put the big case aside. The Jin Yiwei who was about to come over to help saw the scene and had to stop. He turned around and looked at each other with his colleagues. They all saw the same idea in each other's eyes. They and Miss Ling really cooperated tacitly. After Ning Chui took down the books in the 3rd row, he saw that the color of the white wall behind seemed to be newer than the one next to it. Tapped it a few times with my fingers, and I immediately knew it was a secret grid. After prying open the secret compartment, there is a black box inside. After Ning Chui opened it, he found an account book and a handwritten letter inside. What is recorded in the account book is evidence of the crime of corruption by the right minister of the Ministry of Revenue. As for the letter, it was written that the second prince asked Wu Meiniang to charm him and stay with him as a foreign minister in order to monitor him. He also asked the bodyguard Li Yao to threaten his family, forcing Teng Chong to embezzle gold and silver from the bank, hoping to use the money to recruit troops. After reading the account book and handwriting, Ning Chui put it back in the box. Then the box and the gold and silver dug out were all sent to the palace. Wu Meiniang, her mother and son, and Li Yao were taken to prison. Half an hour later, Ning Chui came out of the palace with the imperial edict to confiscate the house, and led the royal guards to surround the residence of the right minister of the Ministry of Revenue. Thank you Big Xiaomeng, dream #reality, this moment, laugh with you, Ricardo. Ad, 999,059, Ricardo. Ad, 999,059, 20230120245533, 20231012837024, 2023-082-8227. AC, A Dream and a Surprise, Prose. BA, China Fuse, Sunshine, Freedom Like the Wine 459, supported by recommendation votes from book friends such as Forget Me Not and Colored Life. In fact, you are a big man. Come quickly and go around in front of all the ladies and ask them to give you a reward and count the votes. Little Hammer, Humph, When will it be my turn to appear? I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 354. The House of the Right Minister of the Ministry of Household Affairs. Right Minister Zhu Kaiming did not go to court today and took sick leave to recuperate at home. But there was actually nothing wrong with his body. The reason why he did not go to court was because the court had been turbulent recently, and there was an uneasiness that a storm was about to come. Since Ling Mao, the former Minister of Household Affairs, was dismissed by the Emperor, he had been vaguely aware that the Emperor was thinking about reorganizing the court. But he was still lucky in his heart, thinking that even if the Emperor wanted to reorganize the court, he would not continue to engage in war. Unexpectedly, the Emperor asked Jin Yiwei to raid the house of the left minister of the Ministry of Revenue. Ever since the Emperor issued the decree, Zhu Kaiming has become increasingly uneasy. Thinking of what he had done, Zhu Kaiming had no intention of going to court and used the excuse of recuperating to stay in the house. He had to think carefully about what he should do next to avoid following in the footsteps of Ling Mao and Teng Chong. Zhu Kaiming stayed in the study for most of the day, but he scratched his head and couldn't think of a way to escape unscathed. Since he woke up in the morning, he hasn't eaten a bite, but he doesn't have much appetite either. With a deep sigh, Zhu Kaiming picked up the teacup again. But suddenly, a young boy burst into the study panting, and slammed open the ajar wooden door. Zhu Kaiming was feeling depressed when he heard the noise and turned his head to glare at the door. However, before he could speak, the young man had already looked frightened and said, "Master, sir, the royal guards have surrounded our mansion." Zhu Kaiming's heart was like a drum beating. He stood up suddenly and said to the boy with a white face, "What did you say?" The teacup in his hand shook, and almost a whole cup of tea was shaken out. Even the brocade robe on his body was wet, but he couldn't care less at this time. The young man was almost crying, "Sir, the commander of the Jinyi guards, no. Master Ning brought many Jinyi guards and surrounded our mansion." Zhu Kaiming suddenly sat down on the armchair, his eyes blank. How could it be so fast? The eyebrows were burning, and Zhu Kaiming didn't say what to do. Xiao I couldn't wait to get rid of it. Just before he could take action, Zhu Kaiming suddenly stood up again and walked quickly outside, his mind racing. After quickly checking the situation in the house, and realizing that there was nothing wrong, Zhu Kaiming calmed down his panic a little. But when he stepped out of the study and saw Ning Chui coming quickly with two teams of guards in uniform from a distance, his heart became high again. Zhu Kaiming did not go any further, enduring his uneasiness and standing quietly where he was. Waiting for Ning Chui to bring people closer, he said with a sullen face, "Master Ning, you suddenly broke into my mansion with so many people. What do you mean?" Ning Chui said nothing, and eunuch Cao came from behind with the imperial edict in hand. "Master Zhu, the emperor has a decree." Zhu Kaiming's fists under his wide sleeves suddenly clenched. With the mansion surrounded by royal guards, Zhu Kaiming knew what this imperial edict meant without even thinking. Eunuch Cao did not declare the edict directly, but waited for the Jin Yiwei to gather all the people in the right minister's house into the main courtyard before launching the edict. Ling Chu stood behind a group of royal guards. Through the gap, he saw men and women kneeling on the ground in panic, as if waiting for the judgment of death. This scene is so familiar. How many times has she seen it since she traveled through time? Although she felt bad, she couldn't change anything. This is not an era where one person does things and the other is responsible. But in ancient times, when one person committed a crime, the whole family was punished, or even the whole family was executed, and 9 tribes were executed. The imperial power was supreme in ancient times. Since these people have enjoyed the glory and wealth brought by Zhu Kaiming, now that what happened, they will naturally have to bear the consequences with him. It seemed like just a moment. But it seems to have gone through a long time. When eunuch Cao finished reading the last word, the entire servant's house was slumped to the ground with faces ashen as death. Zhu Kaiming's whole heart felt like falling into a cold pool. He suddenly came back to his senses when he heard his grandson's confused and panicked cry behind him. First he kowtowed heavily, then raised his head high and shouted in the direction of the palace, "Your Majesty, I am wronged. I am wronged. I am wronged." Zhu Kaiming's tone was filled with grievances, his tone was long and high-pitched, and he shouted 3 times in a row, "I'm wronged." Eunuch Cao frowned. Just before he could speak, Zhu Kaiming suddenly turned around and said, "Master Ning, Eunuch Cao, I have been wronged. I have been an official for more than 10 years and have never corrupted a penny. I am a man of integrity, worthy of the emperor, and worthy of the common people. I have been wronged." As if being reminded by Zhu Kaiming's words, his 3 daughters-in-law and his son's 4 concubines all started shouting grievances. Zhu Kaiming's 3 sons were silent at first, but seeing that their wives and concubines were all crying out for injustice, the 3 of them hesitated and started shouting too. Eunuch Cao lowered his eyes and looked at Zhu Kaiming intently. After a while, he said, "Master Zhu, there is evidence of your corruption in Teng Chong's mansion. The emperor has ordered Gong Shangshu to check the accounts. Teng Chong has handed over the evidence of the crime, and he left a blood letter in prison, accusing you of reselling official grain and official salt." Zhu Kaiming's eyes darkened, and he subconsciously blurted out, "This is impossible. Imperial edicts are no child's play. Since the emperor has issued an edict, it will naturally be implemented." Even though Zhu Kaiming complained, Ning Chui still led people to raid his mansion. However, after half an hour, Jin Yiwei only produced more than 35,000 taels of silver, in addition to the head jewelry of several female family members, farm goods, and other dowries. And this money, to be precise, is not all the money of the Yixilang mansion. Because the money belonging to the public is only more than 11,000 taels. The remaining 24,000 taels were the dowry money of several female family members in the house and were packed at the bottom of the box. The residence of the right servant is not only short of money. Even the decorations, furniture, calligraphy, paintings, porcelain, etc. are all worthless things. Looking at these things placed in the yard, Eunuch Cao looked full of surprise. An idea came to my mind. The right minister's mansion is so poor, Zhu Kaiming really deserves the word breeze in his sleeves. Could it be that he was really wronged? Zhu Kaiming noticed Eunuch Cao's expression and felt relieved. The 3 sons secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As for the female relatives, the panic and fear just now are gone. After all, they all knew that their father-in-law Zhu Kaiming was indeed a breeze, and the right minister's house was so poor that they had to rely on their dowries to subsidize their affairs in order to maintain their superficial respectability. Although it is embarrassing to have the illusion of superficial beauty exposed, it is better than being thrown into prison and having the emperor behead you. Eunuch Cao looked confused and turned to look at Ning Chui. But there was no expression on his face. At this moment, a guard in Jinyi walked quickly towards the side. When he got closer, he glanced at Zhu Kaiming first, then raised his hand to salute, "Your Excellency, Eunuch Cao, the plaque on the right minister's mansion has fallen down." Eunuch Cao looked a little puzzled. They were ransacking the house, but they just dropped a plaque. Should this guard in uniform come to report to them with great fanfare? What Eunuch Cao didn't see was that Zhu Kaiming's fists that had just been loosened were clenched tightly again. Thanks to the boy who loves reading historical novels for the reward of 100 starting coins. Thanks to Purgatory Phoenix King, 1502162035296892022080809203547212, Yway0310, if there is an afterlife, I want to forget you and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to 2023-022-8441. DC, Nora Nora, Shaoqing. AC, Memories of Dreams. B.A., Chen, Lin Han Yanking, Xianbin, 20230205600329, 1311192132222849, Like a Shadow, Lilac. De, Jula N, Sunshine, Chen, 201703181914308335. If there is an afterlife, I would like to forget you, UN1, Zhou Chuhan's mother, Shangxuan Yu, China Fuse, Happy Baby, V, All Living Things, Freedom Like the Wine 459, The Story of the Goat Song and Eyes, Sankai. DB, Road 92, Memories of Dreams. BA, Forget Me Not, A. Purple Leaves, Heartbeat on the Left, Heaven and Love, CHLWCH, Jin Yinzi, Wind on the Blue Planet, On the Water Side. DD, Tutu is Busy, Heart Has Support, Prose. BA, Dusty Memory, 2023-033-1230. Da and other book friends recommendation votes support it. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 355. Eunuch Cao is not the only one who is puzzled. Even the maid in the right minister's mansion looked surprised. The Jin Wei knew what they were thinking as soon as he saw everyone's expressions. He did not explain much and motioned for everyone to look towards the courtyard door. 4 guards in Jinyi are walking towards the side carrying a large plaque. Ning Chui glanced at the plaque and paused for a moment when he landed on the bulging arms of the 4 imperial guards. Soon he looked back at the big plaque with a thoughtful expression. After retracting his gaze, he subconsciously looked past the Jin Wei on the side and looked at Ling Chu standing behind. Ling Chu looked over at him and smiled at him. Ning Chui was silent for a moment, and as expected, it was her handiwork again. As the 4 Jinyi guards approached, Eunuch Cao also saw something was wrong. Ning Chui's men are all good at martial arts. Normally, it would take 4 people to carry a plaque. But they not only carried it, but it looked like the plaque was quite heavy. Soon, the 4 Jinyi guards carried the plaque over with great effort and placed it on the ground in front of Ning Chu and Eunuch Cao. The plaque fell to the ground, raising a puff of smoke and dust. Ling Chu's eyes followed everyone and landed on the plaque. This plaque was originally hung on the door of the minister's mansion. It was nothing special, just an ordinary wooden board. The word Zufu is written neatly on it. The Jin Wei who came over to report once again raised his hands and said, "Sir, Eunuch Cao, there is a universe in this plaque." Eunuch Cao had already made a guess, so he took a few steps forward and looked carefully, and found that there were cracks in the plaque. I think it cracked when it fell down. With his sharp eyes, Eunuch Cao saw a bit of silver through the cracked gap. Eunuch Cao subconsciously stepped forward and leaned over the plaque to take a closer look. He quickly straightened up and sneered at Zhu Kaiming, "What a breeze with 2 sleeves, Mr. Zhu, you actually have money hidden on this plaque." As soon as Eunuch Cao finished speaking, Zhu Kaiming's 3 daughters-in-law all said in shock, "It's impossible." Ning Chui glanced at Wei Feng. Wei Feng immediately stepped forward and waved the Xiaochun knife in his hand several times. The wooden boards on the large plaque were scattered on the ground. A silver plate as large as a plaque was revealed. The maids, women, and servants in the minister's mansion all looked in disbelief. They have been in and out of the mansion for many years, but they have never discovered that there is such a large silver plate hidden in the plaque hanging on the door. Ning Chui asked coldly, "Master Zhu, how do you explain this?" Zhu Kaiming was panicking just now, but he has calmed down now. "Master Ning, this plaque was handed down from the ancestors of the Zhu family. As for why there is a silver plate hidden inside, I don't know. I think it was built by the ancestors of the Zhou family with the money they saved. In order to prevent thieves from discovering it, they hid it in the plaque. After hearing Zhu Kaiming's explanation, the ladies and concubines in the house looked a little unhappy. The family obviously hid such a large amount of money, but instead of using it, they asked them to use dowry to subsidize it. Ling Chu, who was behind the crowd, suddenly said, "It seems that the ancestors of the Zhu family are really not rich." Zhu Kaiming's heart tightened. That's when he discovered Ling Chu's existence. Even though she was dressed in black soap clothes, Zhu Kaiming could tell at a glance that she was born as a girl. Although this was the first time he met Ling Chu, Zhu Kaiming had already heard about her. Zhu Kaiming felt uneasy and wanted to say something to change the subject, but he was worried that he would hide it. Eunuch Cao has already opened his mouth and said, "Miss Ling, what do you mean by this?" Ling Chu smiled and said with curiosity, "I don't know what kind of business the ancestors of the Zhu family did. Not only did they use silver plates to make plagues, but even the ancestral halls were paved with silver as green bricks." As soon as Ling Chu finished speaking, Zhu Kaiming's eyes darkened. His three sons' expressions all changed greatly. As for the ladies and concubines, they looked surprised and uncertain. Eunuch Cao looked surprised, "Do you take Miss Ling's words seriously?" Ling Chu smiled and continued, "Whether it is true or not, you will know after digging around." Eunuch Cao was doubtful and turned to Ning Chui, "Master Ning." Ning Chui said nothing and took people directly to the ancestral hall. Zhu Kaiming knelt on the ground, his face ashen. The three sons looked anxious. But no one dared to stop Jin Yiwei. Entering the ancestral hall, Ling Chu placed 3 sticks of incense on the tablets of the ancestors of the Zhu family. Facing the rows of memorial tablets on the altar table, Ling Chu said softly, "I'm sorry for disturbing everyone's peace." After putting the incense, Ling Chu summoned a small hammer and smashed all the green bricks on the floor of the ancestral hall. Ning Chui asked Jin Yiwei to step forward and clean up the broken bricks aside. Everyone soon discovered that there was a well-shaped stone trough buried under the blue bricks. In the stone trough are large silver plates. At first glance, the silver was melted and poured into a stone trough. These silver plates were so big and heavy that they couldn't be moved. Ling Chu directly used a small hammer to knock the silver plate into small pieces, and then Ning Chui had someone register it, put it in a box, and carry it out. Out of the door of the ancestral hall, Ling Chu looked up at the plaque hanging above and said to Ning Chui, "Take it off." Ning Chui glanced at her and waved to Yin Sha and Wei Feng. The two of them jumped up at the same time and flew towards the plaque. One person grabbed one end and took down the plaque. Originally, the two people thought that the plaque was very heavy, but after removing it, they found that it was not. Seeing how light they were, Eunuch Cao was a little surprised. It seemed that there was nothing unusual about the plaque in the ancestral hall. Ling Chu said, "Tear down the plaque." Wei Fen now treats Ling Chu's words the same as Ning Chui's. Hearing the words, he immediately stepped forward and took action. The plaque was soon opened. There was no silver plate inside, but 2 account books were hidden inside. The account books record the amount and money of official salt and grain resold. Shocking. After demolishing the ancestral hall, Ling Chu took people to the cellar again. Find more than 30 bags of official grain and 7 or 8 bags of official salt. When these things were carried into the main courtyard, the ladies in the Shillang's mansion were not only afraid, but also full of anger. "I can't even help but feel resentful. There is obviously so much money in the house, but their father-in-law and husband keep it a secret." Watching them helplessly, in order to maintain the dignity of the palace, they used their own dowry to fill it up again and again. They didn't spend even half a penny of that money, but now they have to lose their lives for this money. It would be fine if they died, but their children are still young, so how can they not feel resentful? The ladies only thought that their children were innocent, but they did not think about how many victims would starve to death because Zhu Kaiming sold the official grain used for disaster relief. The evidence of the crime is conclusive and Zhu Kaiming can no longer deny it. The whole family, young and old, as well as all the servants waiting in the house, were all taken into prison by the Jinyaiwei. As the news spread, the whole court was in a panic, and everyone was in danger. Ling Chu followed everyone and ransacked 2 mansions in a row, and was extremely tired. After returning home, I washed up, didn't eat anything, and fell asleep. She thought she could rest for a few days, but when she woke up the next day, Prince Jing's servant hurriedly came to her, begging her for help. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 357. Miss Ling, follow the younger one quickly. If you are too late, you will die. Chang'an, Prince Jing's servant, was led by the concierge and rushed over panting. When he saw Ling Chu, he felt like he had seen a life-saving straw. Ling Chu looked at him in surprise. What's going on? Something happened to Prince Jing. At this moment, many thoughts flashed through Ling Chu's mind. The first reaction was that Prince Jing was about to die of illness, but he felt something was wrong. If Prince Jing's son is seriously ill, the person the Prince Jing's mansion looks for should be an imperial doctor, and he will not come to her. But it shouldn't be said that he was haunted by ghosts again like before. Prince Jing has the amulet and jade pendant she gave him, and it is said that most ghosts and monsters cannot get close to him. Chang'an took a breath, then shook his head and said, "No, our prince is fine, he is fine." Ling Chu was curious, who is going to die? Chang'an was anxious and wanted to pull Ling Chu away immediately. Princess Ding Yuan was also looking at him curiously, so she had to suppress her anxiety. "It's Mr. Xiao," Chang'an said. Seeing Ling Chu's confused look, he explained, "Mr. Xiao is the concubine of Xiaoshan Bo He." Chang'an subconsciously wanted to say more. He saw that the princess was standing aside and there were other maids and women in the hall. He realized that the next words were inappropriate and swallowed them back. He said quickly, "Something has happened to young Master Xiao. Our prince said that he may have been possessed by evil spirits. Let me ask you to come over and see if you can save his life." It turned out that he was possessed by an evil spirit, so no wonder he came to find her. "Miss Ling, if there is anything else you want to know, let's talk while we walk. I'm worried that if it's too late, young Master Xiao will be beaten to death by Xiaoshan Bo." Hearing that Uncle Xiaoshan wanted to kill young Master Xiao, the princess thought it was because he was possessed by evil spirits, but she didn't expect that there was actually something else hidden. Xiaoshan Bo was an old dandy with a not-so-good reputation. The princess originally didn't want Ling Chu to go. It can be seen that Chang'an is anxious. The princess is thinking that it is her life after all, but she can't stop her daughter from saving people. Seeing that Chang'an was anxious, Ling Chu asked Xiaoji to fetch the bamboo basket where she placed the magical artifacts, and then prepared to leave the house. After leaving the mansion, thinking of Ning Chui's 100 cases, Ling Chu said to Yang Yun, "Shi Wei Yang, go find Mr. Ning and tell him that I helped him take a case and ask him to come to Xiaoshan Bo's mansion." Although the matter of young Master Xiao being possessed by an evil spirit was not under the control of Jinyi guards, Ling Chu wanted Ning Chui to get involved. Anyway, the emperor did not stipulate that among his 100 cases, they were not major cases like confiscation of houses. She believed that since the emperor asked her to come to Jinyi to help Ning Chui, he wanted him to complete 100 cases as soon as possible so that he could be reinstated as soon as possible. "Yes, girl." After Yang Yun agreed, he immediately rode to find Ning Chui. Ling Chu got on the carriage and found Chang'an hesitant to speak. "Does your eldest son have anything else to convey to you?" Chang'an was embarrassed at first, but Prince Jing really asked him not to hide it, and told him that he must tell Ling Chu clearly about their young Master Xiao. Ling Chu looked at Chang'an curiously, but he didn't expect that the first sentence he spoke would drop a bomb. Miss Ling, third young master Xiao, slept Shushanbo's concubine to bed. Ling Chu's eyes suddenly widened, almost thinking he heard wrongly. The concubine of Mr. Xiao San and Bo Xiaoshan is incest. According to Chang'an, Xiao Hong, the third son of Xiao, was found sleeping on the bed of Huang, the concubine of Xiaoshan Bo, this morning. Shushanbo was furious when he found out about this. The concubine and Xiao Hong will be killed with a stick. But Huang cried and cried, saying that Xiao Hong had drugged her and raped her. But Xiao Hong did not admit this, saying that it was someone else who slept with Mr. Huang, not him. Shushanbo was already furious, but when he saw Xiao Hong being caught and raped in bed, he still denied it. So he was angry and determined to beat him to death. But Prince Jing, who had originally made an appointment with Xiao Hong to discuss things in the tea house, couldn't wait for a long time, so he approached Xiaoshan Bafu. By chance, I saw Xiaoshan Bo asking someone to kill Xiao Hong with a stick. As a good friend, Prince Jing encountered this incident and naturally stepped forward to stop him. After asking, I learned the whole story. Originally the fault was Xiao Hong's, and Prince Jing was also in a bit of a dilemma. But later I saw that even if he was about to be killed with a stick, he still insisted that he was not the one who slept with Huang. Prince Jing has been friends with Xiao Hong for many years and knows his character well. He does not believe that he would the Huang family. Seeing that his expression seemed to be different, after questioning, Xiao Hongke said that someone had taken over his body, and the man who slept with Huang was the man who took over his body. Xiaoshanbo had never heard of such a bizarre thing like someone taking over his body, and he didn't believe Xiao Hong's words at all. Thought this was an excuse he made up to escape the charge. Xiaoshanbo didn't believe it, but Prince Jing had once been possessed by a ghost, so he knew that Xiao Hong must have been possessed by evil spirits. So he used his identity as the crown prince to stop Shushanbo and ask Chang'an to invite Ling Chu over. After listening to Chang'an's story, the carriage arrived at Xiaoshanbo's mansion. The porter saw that Ling Chu was coming with Prince Jing's servant, so he did not stop him. Ling Chu followed Chang'an to a courtyard and saw the pale-faced Xiaoshanbo in the flower hall. Not far from him was a young master kneeling. Presumably that is Xiao Hong, the concubine of Xiaoshanbo. As soon as Crown Prince Jing saw Ling Chu, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Auntie, you are finally here." Ling Chu twitched the corner of his mouth, glanced at Prince Jing, and then looked away. Then Fu Shen paid tribute to Xiaoshanbo. Xiaoshanbo originally didn't want Ling Chu to come over, but Prince Jing insisted. He couldn't resist, so he had to agree. Seeing Ling Chu at this time, he just nodded lightly. With such a big scandal happening in the house, it is understandable that Xiaoshanbo has a cold attitude. Ling Chu didn't mind either and turned to look at Mr. Xiao, who was kneeling upright. The expression on Xiao Hong's face was very complicated, including anger, grievance, annoyance, and helplessness. Originally heard Prince Jing say that Ling Chu could help him clear his name, and Xiao Hong was very hopeful. It was obvious that Ling Chu was so young, so he couldn't help but feel disappointed. I don't believe she has the ability to help him. This is not the first time that someone has doubted his ability, and Ling Chu is not annoyed either. She came to Xiaoshanbo's mansion today not only for the sake of Prince Jing, but also to help Ning Chui complete the 100 cases. Ling Chu looked at Huang, who was kneeling on the other side with a white face. Shushanbo was a lecherous man. Before he got married, he had many concubines from his first wife. After marrying his wife, there was no change. He still went to the house to carry people to the house every 2 days. His wife died within a few years. Shushanbo became even more aggressive. As long as he liked someone, he would always find a way to get that person back home. Up to now, Shushanbo has 13 concubines. As for how many concubines there are, Shushanbo himself cannot remember clearly. Xiao Shanbo has good taste, and the women he likes are all pretty. This Huang is a beauty. She may have cried before. She looks like pear blossoms with rain, which makes me feel pity for her. It can arouse a man's pity for her beauty. It's a pity that Ling Chu is not a man. There is no sympathy at all. With a flick of his wrist, he pulled out the Bodhi whip and struck Huang in the direction without saying a word. Ning Chui, who was stepping into the flower hall, paused. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 359. Ning Chui didn't expect that after receiving Yang Yun's words, he hurried over and happened to see Ling Chu whipping someone with a whip. He glanced over her body and felt relieved when he saw that nothing happened. Pick up your feet and continue walking in. It was just a matter of flogging Shushanbo's concubine, which was not a big deal. Even if something happens, he is always there to help her. Xiao Shanbo was a little surprised when he saw Ning Chui coming over. Before he could see the ceremony, he saw Ling Chu whipping his concubine. She originally thought that Ning Chui would stop her, but she didn't expect that he would turn a blind eye. Ling Chu's Bodhi whip hit Huang. Feeling the lethality of the Bodhi whip, the Yinhun who was preparing to Huang's essence was startled and quickly backed away. Although the ghost retreated, it did not leave. It stood in the distance and looked at Ling Chu in confusion. Seeing that she didn't seem to notice him, he felt relieved. Mrs. Huang didn't know there was a ghost around her. When Ling Chu's whip hit her, she screamed and got up from the ground, crying and threw herself into Xiao Shanbo's arms. "Uncle, help me." Seeing Huang rushing towards him, Xiao Shanbo subconsciously pulled Huang into his arms. Mrs. Huang was happy in her heart. She weakly grabbed Xiao Shanbo's sleeves with her little hands and hid in his arms, trembling. "Uncle, uncle, please save me quickly." The beauty's weakness and dependence immediately aroused Shushanbo's protective desire, and he turned his head and glared at Ling Chu. But before she had time to speak, several gorgeous women walked in from the door one after another. "Hey, Mr. Huang, you were complaining to the maid about our uncle's age, so why are you asking him to save his life now?" As soon as Mrs. Lu finished speaking, another concubine next to her, Mrs. Tian, was delicate and soft, and followed closely. "I also heard that Mrs. Huang just praised the third son in front of the maid and the mother-in-law not long ago. 1. I can even read books well." These two concubines were originally very favored, but after Huang was taken in, they fell out of favor. Xiao Shanbo had no legitimate sons, but he had 7 or 8 concubines. Although Xiao Hong was not the eldest son of a concubine and ranked third among the concubines, he was the one who knew how to make progress the most. Moreover, his appearance is indeed not bad, and he is also good at reading. But what the two concubines said now were not to praise him, but to kill him. Xiao Shanboban was extremely dissatisfied with Xiao Hong's affair with Huang. After hearing what these two concubines said, I was even more disgusted. Unknowingly, he let go of Huang's hand. Huang was angry in her heart, but she said aggrievedly on her face, "The two sisters have wronged my sister, and my sister has never said these things." He then reached out and pulled Xiao Shanbo's sleeve. "Uncle, you know that I only admire your grace and beauty." Seeing that my uncle was about to be charmed by this charming girl again, the concubine Gong who was walking at the back covered her lips with a handkerchief and coughed twice, interrupting the affectionate relationship between the two. "Sister Huang Yao, I heard that you asked your maid to buy medicine. My uncle stayed in your yard last night. It seems that he likes the medicine very much. What kind of medicine is it? Tell me what medicine it is. I will also prepare some. I can have more fun when my uncle comes to my yard next time." Mr. Gong had obviously found out about Mr. Huang and Xiao Hong early in the morning, and she also knew full well that Uncle Xiaoshan stayed at Yuheng courtyard last night. But he just pretended not to know. Her words were reminding Xiao Shanbo that Huang had drugged Xiao Hong to seduce him last night. Xiao Shanbo heard what Gong said and thought about his concubine, so he threw Wang's hand away. Huang hated those 3 concubines in her heart. But at this time, she didn't care about the intrigues. She just grabbed Xiao Shanbo's sleeve and cried until the pear blossoms were raining, "Uncle, I have been wronged. I did not ask the maid to buy medicine, nor did I seduce the 3rd young master. I was not feeling well last night and rested early. I don't know how the 3rd young master came to stay in my house." Gong covered her mouth and whispered, "Ah, sister, I heard someone say this morning that the 3rd young master in your yard. My sister still doesn't believe it." "So it's true?" Ms. Tian said, "Sister Huang Yao, you didn't seduce the 3rd young master. Could it be that the 3rd young master forced you to do good things?" Mrs. Lu snorted disdainfully, "I heard that 3rd young master asked for water 3 times at Tingyuju last night. If Sister Huang Yao doesn't want to, just shout out and 3rd young master won't be able to do anything. Since you didn't shout, you too, it's just what you want." "No, I didn't." "Sister Huang Yao, you better not deny it. You can't deny it. You are not the only one in your yard. Someone must know what happened last night. I will find out if I find someone to interrogate." Xiao Shanbo was already angered by the words of his 3 concubines. Even if he was a dandy, he couldn't bear this kind of thing. With a dark face, he shouted loudly, "That's enough, come here, drag these 2 people out and kill them with sticks." Ms. Huang was panicked. She was so excited by that person last night that she forgot about her feelings and screamed a few times. Although he reacted later and didn't say anything again, maybe someone actually heard him. Xiao Hong was found on her bed again this morning. This matter cannot be denied. "Uncle, I was not willing to do it at first, but the 3rd young master gave me medicine. He used force on me, and I was unable to resist. Please forgive me this time, and I will definitely not dare to do it in the future." Seeing that Mr. Huang was blaming the matter on himself, Xiao Hong was angry. "You're talking nonsense, that's not me at all, it was someone who took my body and did it." Shushanbo didn't want to hear any more explanations and asked the servants to drag Xiao Hong and Huang down to kill them with sticks. Ms. Huang didn't want to die, so she cried and begged, holding Xiao Shanbo with her hands and feet, hoping that he would spare her. Xiao Hong looked ashen when he saw that no one believed what he said. Prince Jingsu knew that Ling Chu was there, so he was not worried about Xiao Hong at all. Instead, he looked at it with great interest while holding a teacup. The concentration on his face was like being entranced by a play in a tea house. Ning Chui was not interested in the affairs of the Shaoshan Palace. She frowned slightly and looked at Ling Chu. It was up to her whether she wanted to interfere or not. Ling Chu heard that Shushanbo had always been a dandy. "But I didn't expect that for a man of his age, the concubines in his house would become such a mess in order to compete for favors. It's no wonder that Mrs. Shushanbo married him and died within a few years. Any normal lady would not be able to bear the absurdity of Shaoshan Bafu. If it weren't for helping Ning Chui, Ling Chu wouldn't want to get involved in this matter. But since I owe Master Ning so much, I must pay it back." Seeing that the boy was about to drag Xiao Hong down to hit the board, Ling Chu stepped forward and stopped them. "Wait a minute." After Ling Chu spoke out, Ning Chui also looked towards the boys. Seeing his expression as cold as ice, the boys did not dare to step forward. Ling Chu asked Xiao Hong, "Is the man who robbed your body about 20 years old and has a black mole on his lower jaw? Do you believe someone really robbed my body?" Xiao Hong was stunned at first, then looked at Ling Chu eagerly. "How do you know what that man looks like? Do you recognize him?" The ghost next to him suddenly felt a little uneasy. He was thinking about leaving quickly when he suddenly saw a yellow talisman hitting him. Thanks to the boy who loves reading historical novels for the reward of 400 starting coins. Thanks to Xiao Ling A, 213,209, The Boy Who Loves Reading Historical Novels, Little Peony 1, Red Apple 213, Red Apple 213 and other book friends for their monthly support. Thank you for The Sound of the Wind, Xian Xian Zhuanzhuan, Smile Melody, Falling Leaves No Autumn. Add, The Sound of the Wind, This Moment, Laughing with You, v, Writing for the Future, Silent Blessings, Why Do You Grow Old, Jula N, A Boy Who Loves Reading Historical Novels, UN1, Hopes That Dreams Come True, Ulrika. DB. Shusha Tribe, Fei Yefi, Heartbeat on the Left, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Penyong Fang, Silver Star, Yunyun Zongshen, Care, CHLWCH, Xianbin, 15021620352968920211022120741050. China Fuse, Pros. BA, 2023010520083639, Yulian. It is supported by the recommendation votes of book friends such as Yuman, BC and Chen. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 360. Chapter 354, Poisonous Woman's Heart. Ling Chu threw out the talisman and stopped the ghost. You were the one who snatched young Master Xiao's body. The ghost was shocked. Can you see me? He shook his head in disbelief. Impossible, how can you see me? No one can see me. Seeing Ling Chu talking to the deserted air, the people in Shaoshan House suddenly felt that the air around them was sour. Ning Chui and Prince Jing are used to it. Xiao Hong looked excited. Girl, have you seen that man? Help me ask him. I have no enmity with him. Why are you trying to hurt me? The ghost glanced at Xiao Hong and then withdrew his gaze, trying to wait for an opportunity to escape. Ling Chu saw his intention clearly. You can't leave. Young Master Xiao has no enmity against you. You have hurt him so miserably, and you must repay the debt you owe. When Mrs. Lu and the others saw Ling Chu talking to a deserted place, they were frightened and did not dare to say anything. Xiao Shanbo originally didn't believe Xiao Hong's claim that someone had snatched his body, but now he couldn't help but be a little shaken. The ghost wanted to leave, but was blocked by the yellow talisman after several attempts. The evil spirit was suddenly aroused. I have no enmity with Mr. Xiao. If I want to blame him, it's because his father is Xiao Shanbo. Ling Chu was surprised. You have a grudge against Xiao Shanbo? Could it be that your death is related to him? Xiao Shanbo glared at Ling Chu. Uncle, I have never had human blood on my hands. He didn't look like he was lying. Although Shushanbo was a dandy, he would not deny what he had done. Do you know a man named Chen Yi? A trace of panic suddenly flashed across Wang's face, but Ling Chu was looking at Xiao Shanbo and didn't notice it. Shushanbo couldn't see the ghost, and said angrily to the air, I don't know what Chen Yi and Li Yi are. How could such a lonely ghost dare to accuse me unjustly? Ling Chu, although you didn't kill Chen Yi, he and you have an sworn hatred. Xiao Shanbo frowned and said, I don't know that Chen Yi, so where's the enmity? You robbed his fiancée. Although my uncle is lecherous, he never engages in robbery. The women he accepts are all willing. Although Xiao Shanbo was a dandy and lustful, he still knew how to behave appropriately. He knew that if he dared to rob civilian girls, the emperor would never tolerate him. Huang looked at Ling Chu in surprise, unsure whether she had really seen Chen Yi's ghost or found out about her past affairs. Ling Chu, uncle, do you know that Chen Yi and Huang Yao were originally engaged? If you hadn't accepted the Huang family, Chen Yi would have married her long ago. What, Huang Yao is actually Chen Yi's fiancé? Shushanbo stared at Huang Yao. Huang, Didn't you say that you were not married? Huang Yao glared at Ling Chu angrily, and when he turned to Xiao Shanbo, his face was filled with grievance. Uncle, I don't know Chen Yi or Li Yi, nor am I engaged to anyone. I have always only had my uncle in my heart, and no one else. Shu Shanbo was doubtful, and after thinking about it, he remembered that when he first accepted the Huang family, she did say that there would be no marriage. Miss Ling, is there any misunderstanding? Neither Mr. Huang nor I recognize the statement. Ling Chu glanced at Huang and said quietly, in that case, why not confront him face to face? Huang's heart was relieved. The grass on Chen Yi's grave was probably several feet high. Without any proof, as long as she refuses to admit it, who can prove that she was engaged to Chen Yi? Ling Chu glanced at Mr. Huang and hid a soul-revealing talisman on Chen Yi. Soon, Chen Yi's ghost appeared. Ah, there is a ghost. Tian exclaimed when she saw Chen Yi, who was filled with gloomy energy and his feet were floating in the air. He rolled his eyes and fell to the ground. Although Mrs. Lu and Mrs. Gong were not frightened and fainted, their faces were full of fear and they both huddled in the corner. Other maids, women, and servants all had weak legs and feet. Shu Shanbo was a little frightened when he saw the ghost that suddenly appeared. He swallowed and asked, "You, who are you?" Chen Yi ignored him and instead rushed towards the pale-faced Huang. "Bitch, you are obviously my fiancé and you accepted my betrothal gift, but you regretted the marriage because you were greedy for glory and wealth, and you even tricked me into drinking poisoned wine. Such a vicious woman, you really deserve to die." Huang's face turned pale. She didn't expect Chen Yi's ghost really existed. I didn't even expect that he would expose such a big secret in public. Huang Yao's eyes flickered. "You're talking nonsense. I don't know you at all. How could I have any engagement with you?" "You are lying, Mrs. Huang, you have obviously been with me for 2 years. Uncle, don't listen to his nonsense. I don't even know this person." Seeing that Huang Yao denied their relationship, Chen Yi was angry, but he didn't know if he was a ghost and was delirious. He would only keep saying that he was not lying. Ling Chu sighed, "Since you have been dating for 2 years, someone else must know about this, right?" Chen Yi was stunned for a moment, and finally reacted, "Yes, both parents know about my engagement with Huang Yao. Also, it was Aunt Chen next door who introduced Mr. Huang to me. She knows best. Although Chen Yi is dead, I think Aunt Chen is still alive. Whether this matter is true or not, my uncle will send someone to check it out." Xiao Shanbo ordered with a dark face, "Come here." Huang Yao wanted to chop Ling Chu alive, but at this moment she couldn't care about anything and rushed towards Xiao Shanbo. "Uncle, it's not that I want to hide anything. The matter between Chen Yi and I was decided by my parents, and I didn't want to. After I met the uncle, I made it clear to Chen Yi that I would not marry. It's his that he keeps getting entangled with. Uncle, the reason why I didn't say anything was just because I didn't want you to misunderstand." "Huang Yao, why has your heart become so dark? At first you said that Uncle Xiaoshan liked you, and if you didn't agree to be his concubine, Uncle Xiaoshan would kill both of our families. I want to argue with Xiaoshanbo, but you have begged me not to let me go, saying that you can't bear to have your parents and relatives killed by Xiaoshanbo. I reluctantly agree to break off the engagement and ask you to return the bride price to me. But you said that your family is poor and your parents cannot prepare a decent dowry for you. If you marry into the Xiaoshan Bafu, you will definitely be looked down upon. I insisted on taking back the bride price, and you nodded in agreement. But he told me that he had just met me, so that we could have a good time together, and that he would have his last meal with me. Unexpectedly, you put poison in the wine, poisoned me to death, and finally took my betrothal gift to marry Xiaoshanbo." Prince Jing was stunned when he heard this, and suddenly blurted out, "Then you died. Didn't your family suspect the Huang family and didn't report it to the official?" Chen Yi smiled sadly, We are just an ordinary family with no power or influence. Even if my parents doubt the Huang family, it doesn't matter. After my death, she became a concubine to Xiaoshanbo. My parents went to Huang Yao's family to ask for an explanation, but they said that if my parents dared to tell the truth, Shushanbo would definitely feel embarrassed if he knew that his concubine was married to someone else, and he would definitely make people angry and embarrassed. Kill my parents. Thanks to CM. EA for the reward of 100 book coins. Thanks to 2 book friends, Hope Dreams Come True and Lonely Man, for their monthly support. Thank you for the colorful life. 202103011064724333066, Xiaomei, the story of the Song of the Goat and the Eyes. Tutu is very busy, on the water side. DD 1611132244244936, Feng Kishan, Ixixi, 1311192132222849, Pros. BA, Guan. DC, Scar Red, Falling Leaves No Autumn. Add, 2023-021-8508. AC, UN1, Jula N, All Living Beings, 2023-02084311051, Penyong Fang, Heartbeat on the Left, Eden of the East, Official. DC, 854*729, .v, CHLWCH, Solitary Person, Seong Bin, Free as the Wind 459, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Tutu is very busy, The Wind of the Blue Planet, Purgatory Phoenix King, Yulianuit is supported by the recommendation votes of book friends such as Meng. BC, Why We Grow Old, End of the World. EC, Ixixi, Zeng, E, Shapai Kai and others. Thanks to Hungzio and Xiaoxiang for supporting book friends. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 361. Prince Jing found it incredible, but he also knew that powerless people were indeed very afraid of powerful people. Although Xiaoshanbo was a dandy and a womanizer, he was also a member of the clan. Chen Yi's parents would definitely not dare to ask him for an explanation. They could only accept their fate regarding their son's matter. Ling Chu, although Bernard Xiaoshan has taken over the Huang family, Xiao Hong has no grudge against you. How can you take his body? Chen Yi died unjustly, thinking that if it weren't for Xiaoshanbo, he would not have died a tragic death. Who makes Xiao Hong unlucky? He has a lecherous man like Xiaoshanbo as his father. Since Xiaoshanbo has robbed my fiancée, I will naturally let him taste the pain. Xiaoshanbo had many concubines, but Xiao Hong was the most knowledgeable and was likely to succeed Xiaoshanbo in the future. His destruction of Chen Yi was equivalent to the destruction of the entire Xiaoshan prefecture. Chen Yi selected Xiao Hong, robbed his body, and touched Huang Yao's yard at night. Originally, when the time came, every courtyard would be locked on time. Ordinarily, Chen Yi would not be able to enter Huang Yao's Tingyu residence. But I don't know what happened that day. Not only did he enter Huang Yao's yard smoothly, and the dormitory is unlocked. Chen Yi got on the bed and immediately started to attack Huang Yao. Huang Yao woke up from his dream and found that it was Xiao Hong, and he immediately started struggling. But she was no match for her strength, and she was afraid of being discovered by her servants, so she did not dare to shout loudly. Huang Yao was already dressed coolly, and his body reacted quickly as he struggled. Shushanbo is old, and he has always been lustful and intemperate. The concubines took in one concubine after another, and they often stayed in brothels. The body has been exhausted for a long time, and sometimes it is necessary to rely on drugs to cheer up. Huang Yao was naturally dissatisfied with Xiaoshanbo's physical strength when he was young and handsome, but he didn't dare to show it. Although Xiao Hong was a concubine, he was well educated and handsome, and many young ladies were quite fond of him. Mr. Huang was admitted to the Shaoshan Count's mansion. When she saw Xiao Hong for the first time, she secretly regretted that the person she married was not him. When she was pressed on the bed by Xiao Hong, Huang started to panic, but soon gave up her struggle. With half a push, the two quickly rolled together. Although the Huang family was still favored, Xiaoshanbo had many concubines, and there were even more maids who had no title or status. He also stayed in a brothel every 3 days. Huang often had to stay alone in her empty boudoir, so naturally she was not satisfied. Xiao Hong was young and had good physical strength, which made Huang very satisfied and kept pestering him unknowingly. Originally, Mrs. Huang thought that after finishing the matter, she would quietly let Xiao Hong leave. Unexpectedly, she knew the taste of the marrow and was so greedy that she finally fainted from exhaustion. Huang originally thought that the two were having an affair, and Xiao Hong didn't dare to let outsiders know. He would definitely leave quietly. Unexpectedly, Chen Yi didn't leave at all after sleeping. He wanted to take revenge on Shushanbo and deliberately let people find him sleeping in Wang's bed. Xiaoshanbo robbed Huang Yao. Chen Yi is about to let his son sleep with his concubine. He could not kill Shushanbo, but if the incident spread, it would make him lose face. Shushanbo's face was as black as ink. He didn't expect that all this was caused by his accepting the Huang family. Although he was still fresh about Huang, Xiao Hong was found in her bed. After this happened, Huang could no longer stay. Otherwise, every time he sees her in the future, he will be reminded of the incest. Xiaoshanbo waved his hand to the servants and asked them to take Mr. Huang down. Huang originally thought that she was beautiful enough and Shushanbo was doting on her, so he would not kill her. When she saw the boy dragging her away without mercy, she panicked. "Uncle, please spare my life, I know I made a mistake, please forgive me this time." Xiaoshanbo was not moved at all. "It's just beauty, he never lacks it." Without Huang, there are countless Li and Chen families. Huang struggled desperately, but her strength was no match for Kongwu's powerful young man. It was quickly towed away. The Lu family's concubines were happy, but they didn't dare to show it because Shushanbo was in a bad mood. Seeing that Chen Yi's ghost was still there, Shushanbo hesitated and said, "Although I accepted Mrs. Huang, I didn't know that she was married to you. If I had known, I would never have wanted her. Your betrothal gift is in Wang's house. I will have it packed up and returned to your parents. In addition, give them another 500 taels as compensation for you." Although Xiaoshanbo was angry at Chen Yi for what he had done, he was dead and could not do anything to him. Xiaoshanbo was worried that if Chen Yi was dissatisfied again and engaged in incest, the emperor would definitely be dissatisfied. Chen Yi did not expect that Shushanbo did not blame him. Not only did he promise to return his betrothal gift, but he also compensated his parents for 500 taels. This man and one ghost are quite satisfied. However, Xiao Hong was not happy at all. It was his father who robbed Huang, and Chen Yi was already dead. He, the victim, could not even take revenge. Xiao Hong felt aggrieved, but there was nothing he could do. Seeing Ning Chui and Ling Chu leaving, Xiao Hong hesitated for a while and finally caught up with them at the gate. "Master Ning, can I join the Jinyi guards as an errand?" Ning Chui stopped, looked back, and said softly, "Jinyi Wei is not suitable for you. If you want to avoid rumors, you can consider joining the army." Xiao Hong was startled, but quickly thanked Ning Chui, "Thank you for your advice, sir." Although the truth of the matter came to light, Xiao Hong's future was ruined. Although Chen Yi did it for revenge, he used his body. His father has no regard for him as a bastard. After this incident, he will never treat him again in the future. He can no longer stay in this home. His aunt died long ago. It was probably a good thing for him to leave the capital and the smoky uncle's house. Ning Chui left, and Ling Chu didn't stay anymore. After walking for a while, Ling Chukai smiled and said, "Congratulations, sir, for handling another case." Ning Chui glanced at her without stopping. From beginning to end, he didn't even say a word about this matter today, let alone handle the case. "You don't have to help me take cases in the future." Ning Chui doesn't care whether he can complete 100 cases in 1 year. Good. Ling Chu smiled and nodded, but had no intention of listening to him. It is impossible not to help. She owed him so much, and she had to pay it back in order to feel at ease. The palace of the left and right ministers was raided, and the treasury had money. The emperor was finally not so worried. "I heard that Ning Chui had handled another case, and I felt even better." Eunuch Cao took the opportunity and said, "Your Majesty, the Minister of the Ministry of Industry would like to ask the hospital to help Mrs. Jo cure her illness. Mrs. Jo has been ill for such a long time, and the whole hospital cannot cure her. I'm afraid this is not an easy matter." The emperor paused and then continued, "I have given instructions that this case should be handled by Ning Iking and Ling Zioki." Eunuch Cao knew that the emperor deliberately asked Ning Chui to complete 100 cases as soon as possible so that he could be reinstated. Ling Chu accepted the oral instructions and followed Ning Chui to the minister's mansion of the Ministry of Industry. I happened to hear Dr. Li shaking his head and saying, "I'm sorry that I can't do anything. You, prepare for the funeral as soon as possible." Ling Chu looked at the unconscious Mrs. Jo and said softly, "It's not that serious. If you give back the borrowed illness, Mrs. Jo won't have any problem living for another 20 or 30 years. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times." Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 362. Really? After Bai Hongsheng, the minister of the Ministry of Industry, spoke, he realized that the person who had just spoken was not Dr. Li, but a strange young female voice. Bai Hongsheng turned around and realized that Ning Chui was standing behind him, and next to him stood a girl wearing soap clothes. Beside them is the steward of Bai Mansion, who apparently brought Ning Chui and the others here. Although Bai Hongsheng did not know Ling Chu, among the civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty, only the emperor's newly appointed Jinyai Wei Zioki was a woman. After the emperor sealed Ling Chu, Bai Hongsheng, like many officials, also inquired about her out of curiosity. Knowing that she is a disciple of Master Xian Yi. I even heard that she was the daughter of King Ding Yuan. But none of that matters now. Bai Hongsheng looked at Ling Chu expectantly. "Miss Ling, what did you mean by what you just said?" Ling Chu knew that he actually heard her words clearly, but he just couldn't believe it. "The madam cannot die if she returns her illness, she will be restored to health." Bai Hongsheng frowned. Actually, it wasn't just him, everyone present looked at Ling Chu in confusion. Everyone understood every word of what she just said, but when put together, no one understood what it meant. If Ling Chu hadn't been a disciple of Master Xian Yi, and the emperor had ordered her and Ning Chui to come over to her, she might have been kicked out by the people of Bai Mansion at this moment. Ling Chu saw that Bai Shangshu didn't understand. Even Ning Chui's face showed curiosity. The corners of Ling Chu's mouth twitched. Well, she didn't make it clear. The lady herself is not sick, and the illnesses she has now are all borrowed, therefore, by returning those illnesses, the lady can regain her health. Bai Shangshu still looked a little confused. He has been studying for more than 10 years and has been an official for many years. He considers himself to be very knowledgeable. But he couldn't understand what a little girl said today. If he hadn't seen Dr. Li opposite, who also had a puzzled look on his face, Bai Shangshu would have almost suspected that there was something wrong with his brain. For the sake of his wife, Bai Shangshu just wanted to ask again without shame. His eldest daughter Bai Yelin had already spoken quickly. "Miss Ling, why can't I understand you? I've heard of borrowing money, borrowing books, borrowing rice, and borrowing grain, but I've never heard of borrowing money can take advantage of illness. I know that many things in the world can be borrowed, but can illness also be borrowed? The disease can neither be seen nor touched, how can we borrow it? Physician Li looked at Bai Yelen, who looked doubtful. He actually wanted to say that it was wrong. For doctors and imperial physicians, diseases can be seen and touched. It's just that Dr. Li was also curious about what Ling Chu meant by what he just said. No one interrupted Bai Yelen, and she continued cracklingly, "You said that my grandmother's illness was borrowed. Isn't that right? Our whole family hopes that my grandmother will be healthy and live a long life. Even if the illness can be borrowed, it's nothing. Good thing, no one will lend this to my grandmother." Bai Yelen's words expressed the thoughts of everyone present. Everyone looked at Ling Chu. Seeing Bai Yelen looking at him with big bright eyes, Ling Chu was not annoyed. He smiled and said, "What you said is wrong. Sickness can be borrowed. If I guessed correctly, Mrs. Bai's sickness was borrowed by Bai Shangshu." Bai Hongsheng opened his mouth, hesitating whether his ears were hallucinating or whether he had become a fool. However, Bai Yelen asked with great interest, "Is it true that illness can really be borrowed? How can we borrow it?" As soon as the words came out of her mouth, Bai Yelen realized that her attitude was wrong. The one who was sick was her grandmother. In a blink of an eye, Bai Hongsheng stared at Bai Hongsheng with a suspicious look on his face. "Dad, are you possessed by a ghost and are you borrowing your grandmother's illness?" Lanner. Mrs. Shangshu saw that she was getting more and more outrageous, so she quickly stretched out her hand and pulled her sleeve. Bai Yelen glanced at her father subconsciously and saw that his expression was not good. He didn't dare to speak again, he just looked at Ling Chu curiously with his eyes open. Bai Hongsheng glared at Bai Yelen, and then said, "Miss Ling, I'm sorry that I'm stupid and didn't understand what you said. Although I don't know how to borrow a disease, I can tell you with certainty that I have never borrowed a disease." Perhaps in order to prove that he was not lying, Bai Hongsheng followed up and said, "The one who is sick is my mother, her biological child. Moreover, my mother and I have always gotten along harmoniously. There is no conflict, no friction, and no hatred. What should I borrow? I won't let my mother suffer." Bai Hongsheng, the second master of Bai Mansion, also said, "Miss Ling, my eldest brother didn't lie. If something happens to my mother, my eldest brother will want Ding Yu, and it won't be of any benefit to him. There is no way he could harm my mother." In fact, Bai Hongsheng was a little disapproving. This disciple of Master Xianyi seemed to be just mediocre and had no real ability at all. If Ning Chui hadn't been watching from the side, he would have wanted someone to kick her out. Ling Chu could see the impatience in Bai Hongsheng's eyes at a glance. Forget it, considering that the system has absorbed so much jade from Master Ning, it is nothing for her to endure it. In order to prevent others from suspecting that she was talking nonsense, Ling Chu made a lot of calculations and then said, "According to the hexagram, the illness of Mrs. Tai is caused by the medicine pot." As soon as the words came out, everyone turned to stare at the maid who was preparing the medicine for the wife. The maid's face turned pale, and she knelt down in fright. "Master, madam, slave, I didn't poison the wife." Ling Chu twitched the corner of his mouth. Why should he be so anxious? She hadn't finished speaking yet. Seeing that the maid was about to cry, Ling Chu could only say, "Don't get me wrong, the lady is not poisoned." Physician Li glanced at Ling Chu and swallowed back the words that came to his mouth. Bai Yelen couldn't help but wonder, "Miss Ling, since it's not poisoning, what's wrong with the medicine pot?" Ling Chu did not answer Bai Yelen, but turned to Bai Hongsheng. "Master Bai, before Madame Tai fell ill, did you have a dream in which you borrowed a medicine pot?" Bai Hongsheng was surprised and blurted out, "How do you know?" Bai Yelen was even more surprised than him. "Dad, did you really borrow the medical pot? We have several medical pots at home, so there is no need to borrow them." What Bai Yelen didn't say was that even if there wasn't one, people like them wouldn't need to borrow a medical pot. It's not a rare thing that cannot be bought. There is none in the house. They can ask their servants to buy it back at any time. Let alone one medical pot, 180 will not be a problem. Bai Hongsheng ignored his daughter's words. He couldn't help but be surprised. Miss Ling is indeed a disciple of Master Xian Yi. She can actually see other people's dreams from the hexagrams. He dreamed about borrowing the medicine pot and did not tell anyone about it, but Ling Chu was able to figure it out through the hexagrams, which really impressed him. Ling Chu smiled modestly. Bai Yelin couldn't wait to ask, "Dad, tell me quickly, what dream did you have and why did you need to borrow the medicine pot?" Seeing that everyone was looking at him curiously, Bai Hongsheng glanced at the unconscious wife on the bed and said, "A month ago, I did have a dream that my mother was sick. I knew there was a medical pot in my house, but for some reason, I borrowed one from someone else and brought it back to cook her medicine. Thank you Chen, for writing the future, this moment, laughing with you, Shang Yu, colorful life, 2023-082-8227. AC, 20210301106472433066, 201703181914308835, 201811281005067006, this moment, laughing with you, official. DC, Pros. BA, Heiken, Jula N, White Clouds in the Sky L, A. Purple Leaves, UN1, CM. EA, All Living Beings, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Half an Apple, CHLWCH, Xianbin, Mentioning the Future, Yulian. BC, Yulian. BC, Falling Leaves No Autumn. Ad, Lalunzixi, Hacked Book Friends keep rechecking in, Heartbeat on the left, .v, China Fuse, Ixixi, Why We Grow Old, Tao Yao. EB, Luo, Yangliuan, 202301210127022243, Kingsha Makeup, The Wind of the Blue Planet, 202-307-7797. B and other book friends recommendation vote support. Thanks to Hungxiu and Xiaoxiang for supporting book friends. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 363. Bai Yelin was waiting attentively for Bai Hongsheng to say more, but when she saw that her father didn't speak for a long time, she realized that he had finished speaking. Bai Yelin was a little disappointed. "Dad, is this just a little dream you had?" She thought it was so weird, and she had been looking forward to it for a long time, but she didn't know it was just an ordinary little dream. The dream Bai Hongsheng had was indeed nothing special. If there was anything strange, it was that he knew there was a medical pot in the house, but he still went to borrow it from others. This was not something he would do. But after waking up from the dream, I didn't take it seriously. After all, it's not like he hasn't had more bizarre dreams than this. Bai Hongsheng frowned and thought about it for a moment, then added, "But it's strange that after I had that dream, my mother fell ill within 2 days. But my mother has always been in good health and she rarely gets sick. Even if she has a headache or fever, the most she can do is ask the cook to make some medicinal food for her, and she will be fine the next day. My mother rarely even takes medicine, let alone being as sick as she is now." Ling Chu said, "That's right. You have offended others. The reason why the wife's illness is caused by the medicine pot you borrowed. What do you mean by this? Can a medicine pot make my mother sick?" Bai Yelin felt itchy hearing this. She had never heard of such a bizarre thing. She gave a look to the maid who was making the medicine and asked her to bring the medicine pot over. She wanted to see what kind of medicine pot it was that could still cure diseases. The maid glanced at Mrs. Shangshu and saw her gently nodding towards her. Even though Mrs. Shangshu didn't say anything, she was also very curious about the medicine pot. Mrs. Shangshu did not object, and the maid quickly left the dormitory. He came back soon, holding a medicine pot carefully in his hand. Everyone's eyes fell on the maid's hands. A little disappointed. No matter how they look at it, this is an ordinary medicine pot. There is nothing strange about it. Bai Shangshu frowned. Miss Ling, it's not that I don't believe in your ability. But it was just a dream. You said the problem was with the medical pot, but I never actually borrowed the medical pot. Lord Bai, there is a saying that every line is like a mountain. It's not surprising that you don't understand mysticism. Some things may seem impossible to outsiders, but to us Taoists, they are nothing more than a piece of magic or a talisman. My wife was not sick originally, but someone transferred her illness to the medicine pot. And you borrowed someone else's medicine pot to boil medicine for your mother, and you transferred that person's disease from the medicine pot to your mother's body. The original patient can recover without medication and return to health. Everyone understood what Ling Chu said. But I still find it hard to believe. Ling Chu stepped forward and asked the maid to put the medicine pot on the tea table nearby. He signaled the maid to move away. Ling Chu raised his hand and made a gesture on the medicine pot. In the blink of an eye, a line of small words appeared on the side of the medicine pot. Everyone was surprised. On it was written the name of the dowager, as well as her birth date. Bai Shangshu's face was grave. The facts were before his eyes, and he couldn't help but not believe it. Master Bai suddenly became angry. Who dares to murder my mother? Bai Shangshu also wants to know. But the most important thing now is to save people first. Miss Ling, now that we know the cause of the disease, how can I cure my mother's disease? Ling Chu smiled and said, this is not difficult to say. Since you borrowed the medicine pot from a dream, then if you return it to the other party in the dream, the wife will wake up. Knowing that her grandmother could be revived, Bai Yelan breathed a sigh of relief and blurted out, is it that simple? Bai Yelan seems to have a somewhat forthright temperament, so Bai Shangshu and his wife must be very fond of her on weekdays. Ling Chu had a good impression of her and said with a smile, of course not. You have to know the other person's name and birthday before you can cast a spell to return the medicine pot. Bai Yelan saw that Ling Chu had shown her hand just now and felt that she was much more powerful than those imperial doctors. Since her grandmother fell ill, all the doctors in the imperial hospital, including the hospital director, were invited by her father to help her grandmother treat her illness, but no one could revive her grandmother. Since you need your name and date of birth to cast the spell, Bai Yelan immediately looked at Bai Hongsheng. Dad, who did you borrow the medicine pot from? Bai Hongsheng looked unhappy. I don't know. How could you not know? Bai Yelan was stunned for a while. Others looked at him in confusion. Dad, don't you know that person? That doesn't matter. Don't you know how to paint? You can draw him and send someone to find out his identity and birthday, and then Miss Ling can cast the spell. Bai Yelan can think of things, so why can't Bai Shangshu understand it? He just smiled bitterly and shook his head. In the dream, I didn't see what the person who lent me the medicine pot looked like. I only saw him standing behind the door, handing the medicine pot to me, and then closing the door. I didn't see his face from beginning to end. It's a bit difficult to handle if you don't even know who the other person is. Bai Hongsheng frowned and reminded, brother, if you think about it carefully, can you clearly see where the other party's house is? Or you can see something special? Bai Shangshu frowned and recalled, and after a long while he said, I don't know where that man's house is. In the dream, I suddenly appeared at his door. On the door, by the way, the stone lion on the left side of the door has a small patch of damage on its hair. Also, the person who gave me the medicine pot had a burn scar on the back of his right hand. A month has passed, and I am in a dream again. Bai Shangshu can still remember these things, which is considered to be an excellent memory. Others, Bai Shangshu didn't think of anything special. But the capital city is so big, it's not easy to check just by these two things. Ning Chui had been watching silently. Seeing that everyone had no clue, he suggested, Master Bai, if the wife is gone, who will benefit? Thinking further, if you are Ding Yu, who can benefit? Bai Ongshen's face was gloomy. The wife has always been a kind-hearted person and has never had any grudge against others. Outsiders will not attack her. As for the house, although his father had a concubine, she was gone long ago. The concubine also left no children. He and his second brother are both biological children, so naturally they would not murder their own mothers. As for their wives, the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law has always been harmonious. Bai Hongsheng can be sure that whether it is his wife or his sister-in-law, they will not murder his mother-in-law. As for the children of the two families and the servants who serve them, they will not even take action. Excluding these, the answer is almost self-evident. Obviously, this matter was directed at him. Bai Hongsheng is the minister of the Ministry of Industry. If he were Ding Yu, the one who would benefit the most would naturally be the Zhou Shilang of the Ministry of Industry. Without the constraints of his immediate boss, Zhou Shilang was equivalent to the top leader of the Ministry of Works. As for Zhou Shilang, he did have some problems with him secretly. Could this really have something to do with him? But Bai Hongsheng quickly rejected this idea. He remembered that Zhou Shilang had no scars on the back of his hands. This should not have been done by him. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 364. Chapter 358 Good Luck. Seeing that Bai Shangshu frowned but did not speak, Bai Hongsheng was a little anxious. Brother, why don't you speak? Do you know who wants to harm my mother? Are you the Minister Zhou of the Ministry of Industry? If it were you, Ding Yu, he would be the one who benefited the most. It must have been the hand of that Li Ji. I'll go find him to settle the score. Bai Shangshu looked at him with a headache. Second brother, don't be impulsive. There is no evidence for this matter, and it is useless even if you go to him. There is no scar on the back of Li Ji's hand, and I am not sure it was him. Bai Hongsheng looked worried. What should we do now? Since the emperor handed over the matter to Jin Yiwei, Ning Chui said quietly, I will investigate this matter. The two Shangshu brothers were overjoyed. Jin Yiwei had rich experience, so Ning Chui was the best one to investigate. The wife had several illnesses and was in a coma for about a month. The situation was not optimistic. They have to find the person behind it as soon as possible. After leaving the Ministry of Industry's Shangshu mansion, Ling Chu asked Ning Chui, where do you plan to start? Drug shop. Ling Chu smiled immediately, which coincided with her thoughts. Bai Shangshu remembered too few clues. There were stone lions at the gates of many houses in Kyoto. It was too slow to search them one by one. It would be faster to start from the drug store. Ning Chui dispersed the Jin Yiwei he brought and went to various drug stores to inquire. Ning Chui was about to mount his horse when he saw Ling Chu taking out copper coins. There are many pharmacies in Kyoto, and it takes a lot of time to find one. But luckily she knows how to tell fortunes. Ning Chui stood aside quietly and waited. Ling Chu first did some calculations, then muttered something, and finally scattered the copper coins. Soon a smile appeared on his face. Good luck to you. Ling Chu put away the copper coins and pointed to the right. Sir, go this way. Ning Chui nodded slightly, mounted the horse and pulled the reins. Ling Chu also quickly followed. After half a cup of tea, I saw a medicine shop. Seeing that it was Jin Yiwei who came to investigate the case, everyone in the drugstore, from the shopkeeper to the little boy who took the medicine, answered their questions in a polite manner. I just asked a few people, but I didn't get any clues. However, the expression on Ning Chui's face did not change. He had confidence in Ling Chu's hexagram skills. Sure enough, when he asked about the fifth family, the doctor was startled and said, "There is one person who matches the symptoms you mentioned." Ling Chu was delighted. "May I ask the doctor, who is he?" The doctor glanced at Ning Chui subconsciously and saw that his face was cold and solemn, so he did not dare to hide it. "Mrs. Zhou Zhang from Qilai Lane." "Did the doctor examine Mrs. Zhou?" The doctor nodded, "Yes, but that was already a month ago." "Can the doctor cure Mrs. Zhou?" "Mrs. Zhou was suffering from several diseases and was unconscious. My ability was limited and I couldn't cure her after half a month of treatment." "Is Mrs. Zhou still unconscious?" I don't know." "Zhou Zhang hasn't come to see me for a consultation for a long time, but Mrs. Zhou's condition is very serious. I'm afraid there will be no one left now." The man standing next to him moved his mouth, as if he had something to say. "But I didn't know if I had any concerns, so I didn't speak." Ning Chui's expression was cold. "If anyone with knowledge dares to conceal it and refuse to report it, there will still be room in Jinyui's prison." The clerk's expression changed and he immediately smiled in a flattering manner. "It was a coincidence that I happened to meet Zhou Zhang and his wife on the street a few days ago. Mrs. Zhou was not dead, and she has recovered." The doctor frowned. "That shouldn't be the case. Madame Zhou's condition was so serious that time. Even if she wasn't dead, she would have been in a coma. How could she be cured?" "Dr. Wang, this is absolutely true. I was curious at the time and asked Zhou Zhang. According to him, he found an imperial doctor to cure his wife." Ling Chu and Ning Chui looked at each other. This guy shouldn't be lying. After all, they will know if Mrs. Zhou has recovered. But Zhou Jiang's words are not credible. Mrs. Zhou's illness was exactly the same as that of the wife of the Minister of Industry and Commerce. If the imperial doctor could cure her, there would be no way he could do nothing about the illness of the wife. Ning Chui looked at the clerk. "Did Zhou Zhang get the medicine at your shop earlier?" "Yes." "Is there a scar on the back of his hand?" The guy was surprised and flattered him. "By the way, Your Excellency is really great, everyone knows this." Ning Chui's expression remained unchanged. "Can you tell what the injury is?" "Burn." The guy stretched out the back of his hand and gestured about the size and location. "It is consistent with what Bai Shangshu saw in his dream. All that's left is to go to Zhou Jiang's house and see if the hair of the stone lion at the door is damaged." Getting ready to leave, a man and a woman walked into the drug store. Seeing the person coming, the waiter looked surprised and blurted out, "Zhou Zhang." Ning Chui raised his eyebrows. "It is indeed a good thing." Zhou Zhang stepped into the medicine shop and saw Ning Chui in Fiyo suit, and his expression changed. Subconsciously, I wanted to exit quietly, but unexpectedly, I was stopped by the waiter. Seeing Ning Chui looking towards him, if he left at this time, it would inevitably make people suspicious. Zhou Zhang could only walk to the medicine shop pretending that nothing had happened. "Hello" to the guy with a smile. Ling Chu's eyes fell on the back of Zhou Jiang's hand holding the woman. From her position, she happened to see a scar shaped like a copper coin. Noticing her gaze, Zhou Jiang's heart tightened. Before he could think of a way to cover it up, Ning Chui had already waved to Jin Yiwei behind him. "I didn't break the law, you can't arrest me." Zhou Zhang was suddenly grabbed by the arm by two Jinyi guards, and he struggled angrily. Seeing that he couldn't get away, the woman next to him immediately shouted, "I just came to the pharmacy with my husband for a consultation. Why do you arrest him? Do you have any legal laws?" Mrs. Zhou deliberately shouted at the top of her voice. When she heard the noise, many people immediately gathered outside the door. The arresting guard's face did not change. Mrs. Zhou screamed again, "Help, Jin Yiwei killed someone. It is unjust for Jin Yiwei to arrest innocent people randomly." Ling Chu was so noisy by the shout that his head was buzzing. More and more people gathered outside, whispering and pointing. Mrs. Joe, you are not innocent people. Hearing her words, Mrs. Joe glared at her with her hands on her hips. Even if you are Jin Yiwei, you can't open your eyes and tell lies. My husband and I just came to see a doctor, but you were arrested as soon as we entered the door, and you said we weren't arresting people randomly. Both the doctor and the clerk have seen this. If you don't believe me, ask them, and they will know whether what I said is true. Suddenly being dragged into the water, the doctor and the waiter looked uneasy and did not dare to speak. Ling Chu didn't make things difficult for them either. He said directly, Mrs. Joe, you were seriously ill and unconscious. It was your husband Zhou Zhang who used some means to transfer your illness to the wife of the Minister of Industry. Mrs. Zhou's expression changed and she interrupted her loudly, you are trying to confuse the public with your lies. Who has ever heard that the disease can be transferred? Bai Hongsheng squeezed in from the crowd and said with a serious face, she didn't lie. This is true. After speaking, he stared at Zhou Zhang and said, it's you, lend me the medicine pot. Thanks to Lonely, time is like dust. DD, time is like dust. DD, time is like dust. DD for their monthly support. Thank you for the story of the goat song and eyes, 202302084311051, prose. BA, Scarred, 0808292220201007, Colorful Life, Kikai 77, Fenkishan, Forget Me Not, 20230121012702243, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Prose. BA, Penyong Fang, 201703181914308335, Jula N, Chen, Writing for the Future, Moon Dying Elegance, China Fuse, Hope That Dreams Come True, Forget Me Not, All Living Things, 20230105200836319, The End of the World is Not Far or Near, UN1.VCHLWCH, At This Moment, Laugh With You, Why We Grow Old, Lu 92, Xiong Bin, Tao Yao. EB, Tutu is very busy, Guan Guan. DC, 200908111, Scarred, Falling Leaves Haikyuu. Ad, 2023-082-8227. AC, Xiao Aoyi, Ixixi, Blue Planet's Feng and other book friends recommendation votes support it. Thanks to Hungzio and Xiaoxiang for supporting book friends. End of this chapter.